Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
We just have people coming in that I shall admit as they do. Got to admit, there are some parts of the whole Teams webinar thing that I'm not massively enamored of. It's a lot of manual handling. Either it's a free-for-all or you probably need a co-pilot of sorts.
Look, I don't know whether I've done something wrong with this, and it's just a little thing, but on the Outlook reminder, I don't actually have the button to join from
No,
there.
because you got to register for it.
I
So
did.
with the webinars, they should send you a confirmation that will include the link. Did you get that?
That's what I thought this was, like that created the. Anyway, I'll look at it later.
Okay.
With you.
Yeah, that's right. 2 doors down, then I will have a look at it. We'll just give it a minute while people are coming in. All right, it is 2 past and Teams has already started recording us, so we might make a start and get into today's session, and I will keep admitting people as they show. So look, good morning everybody and welcome to another Teaching Academy PD session. This workshop this morning from the 2530 series is on Panopto, otherwise known as CSU Replay. And I am going to talk a little bit about why we call it that and the language that's in place and the history behind it. It's slightly interesting in the current environment, I guess. But I have a Padlet wall that I'm basically presenting from, and I'm going to drop the link into the chat for you as well, so that you've got access to it, and you're more than welcome to either download it, print it, comment on it, basically do whatever you like except delete it on me. That would be great. So let's have a look at what we're going to be talking about today, which is the tool that we use at CSU for lecture capture called CSU Replay, which is actually a product called Panopto. And mostly we're going to pivot to talk about video resource creation and how we handle that here. I am going to give you a little bit of an explanation around that language. As I said, we're going to spend some time unpacking the difference between the Panopto back end and the front end, because I want you to come out of this session feeling comfortable with the terminology that's in place sometimes that people can get a bit mixed up with, because we look at it through Brightspace, through what I would call the front end, but there's a lot sitting behind that that you need to be aware of so that you can use the tool effectively. So I'll unpack that whole back end, front end business. We're going to have a look at using the tool to create videos and how that's done. We'll walk through that process. I'll show you the editing tool in Panopto. It's very, very simple to use, deliberately so. And then we'll also have a look at the use of the Panopto assignment folder, which is a nice little integration feature that we have in Brightspace that will give your students somewhere to store their videos if you're creating video assignments for students, audio as well, but the focus is mostly on video, and how that can be used in tandem with the Brightspace assignment tool, for example, if you're interested in video assessments for your students. And a few other bits and bobs, time permitting. So that's what I'm intending to do. I'm going to get this board off the screen because that's mostly for me. Let's get into the second one. Okay, so the history behind CSU Replay and Panopto is that previously, about a decade ago, CSU was using a tool called Echo 360 that you might have be familiar with for lecture capture. So effectively, we had students coming in face to face to view lectures in person, but we also wanted to be able to record those lectures and provide them to students elsewhere. And this was before The idea of remote delivery became so widespread, and live Zoom sessions, etc. We were recording videos and making those recordings available elsewhere. So the CSU lecture capture solution would be referred to as CSU Replay. No matter which tool they were actually using for it, they were just going to call it CSU Replay. And when we moved from using Echo to using Panopto, it's still called CSU Replay. So when you're in a subject site and you see that CSU Replay banner, all it means is the official Charles Sturt tool that is being used for lecture capture. Technically, that's why we pay for having Panopto here as our lecture capture tool. Funnily enough, in the meantime, we now have several tools which can do lecture capture, and we're in one of them now, in Teams, for example. We have Zoom, which everyone delivers their remote online meetings in and quite often deliver lectures and record them. And we still have Panopto. And so I will talk a little bit about the difference between IVT, interactive video teaching, lecture capture. So if you're in a big lecture theatre, for example, they use Zoom to capture those recordings, and the conveners who set those up get sent a link from Zoom that they provide to the students. But if you're in a non-IVT space on a campus, which is basically all the other rooms, tutorial rooms, workshop rooms, etc., they still use Panopto to capture those recordings. And quite often there'll be a flashing sort of red or green light in the classroom signaling that that recording is going on. And when it finishes, the recording is made available to students automatically in the subject site. So let me show you what that looks like. Get rid of these slides. Here we have a lovely example subject site, APS 506, that ran in 2460, and they had non-IVT recordings being made each week, and they ended up inside the CSU replay folder for the students in this session alone, 2460. And the way that they accessed those was to go into My Subject, CSU Replay, Panopto here. And we find, once it loads, it does take a little bit, that each of those recordings would be visible here for the students to access. Some of these, it looks like the academic has made themselves during the session, and others were automatically captured. And usually the giveaway is the labeling around it, because this tells me it's the generic label that Panopto adds on. It's a timestamp and the resolution that's being made. And others have quite a specific title, which suggests to me that the academic has done something with that after the fact. Maybe they edited it, things like that, and changed the name. So this is Panopto being used for non-IVT lecture capture in a tutorial room, and those recordings provided automatically in this folder for students. So that is the main reason that we actually pay to have Panopto at CSU for this exact scenario. Non-IVT lecture capture. So is everyone with me so far? I can see some nods. Okay. Any questions at all so far? Or am I right to keep going? Okay, looks like we're good. Otherwise, put things in the chat as we go and I'll get to them. All right. We're going to now have a look at the Panopto backend so you can see what sits behind the use of this platform before we end up spending most of our time inside Brightspace. So when I talk about the backend in Panopto, the address that I'm going to is csu.au.panopto.com. So that's it there. And this will prompt you to sign in to the system. And it's where we store all of those videos. This is what that interface looks like. It does change every 12 months or so. They make some adjustments to the way the interface looks. Like I've noticed now on the left, they have a tiny little condensed navigation area, which used to be a bit bigger. I'm going to start at the bottom looking at the browse function. Got someone else coming in. Okay. And this is a bit better for me. So this is going to show me a series of folders that I have access to, with some of these being university-wide and some of them being my own personal folders. So This is why I wanted to show this to you, because quite often it's important that you know where your video has ended up, particularly if you've lost it and you don't know where it is. So looking in here, I can see that the university has set up faculty-based folders inside Brightspace. I'll just let that person in. And inside those faculty folders, we have school folders. This might be a bit small. Let me zoom in a bit. So faculty, schools, inside the school folders, we have master subject folders, which is parallel to our Brightspace setup. So I can see M- and a subject code. And these videos that get stored in these folders will end up being embedded into the learning materials, into the content, and they will sit there and be available to students in the content every session. That scenario that we looked at earlier inside a subject site with these non-IVT lectures only has value inside this session. Those videos are not going to be available to other students by default outside of 2460. So there's a difference between videos that you want embedded into your content indefinitely and videos that are just available like lectures or tutorials in this session. So the master subject folders are where those videos intended for ongoing use are stored. And then if we actually drill down and find our session subject sites, let's see if we can find some of them. Those are course sites. So if you've got a course site set up and there are some videos stored in them, they also have their own folder structure. And now what I'm expecting to find, if I collapse the master, here are our session folders. So we can see session 1, otherwise known as 2430, 2460, 2490, etc. And the videos that are recorded in those local subject site Panopto folders will end up in here. So if you're ever going hunting for videos that you've made in one of those sessions and you can't find them, this is what it's going to look like in the Panopto backend. You need to know the difference between looking for them in a master folder or a session folder, predominantly. The other folder that's going to be of interest to you is your own personal folder, and on the left there you can see my folder. And quite often if people are just making a Panopto video on the spot, this is where they're going to stash it so that they can do something with it later, edit it, move it somewhere else, etc. Speaking of moving a video, I'll show you how to do that while we're in here. Inside my own personal folder in the Panopto backend, I can create subfolders and I can move videos around by checking the box. And then you'll see up the top here, there are some options to copy them, to share them with people, to move them. So if I wanted to move this video into one of these subfolders, for example, I could do that by using the move function. And then it's going to say, where do you want it to go? And my list of folders that I can move things to is probably a bit larger. But if I wanted to move them into another area of my personal folder, I could find that in here and then move the video and it'll move them around. So you can move them between different subject folders. You can move them between your own personal folders. It's very easy to do that. So all of that happens in the Brightspace backend if you're accessing the recording video file. I'm not going to spend too much time in here because I want our focus to be on what we do with them in our subject sites and actually using the Panopto tool to record. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of context around the back end of Panopto so you know where these things end up. Does anyone have any questions or comments at that point? Anyone want to weigh in? Anyone raging in the chat, Veronica? I'm looking at you. No?
Just one question, sorry.
Go ahead, Catherine. Yeah.
So one of my subjects, Bio 262, in the back end, there seem to be a number of different folders, one of which seems to be attached to the master subject, one of which it's not a session folder. It sort of looks a bit odd, and that's where most of the videos are. Like, is that
Right.
something that's likely to be a problem in future? Should I move stuff into the official master's site, or is it okay to leave it in the sort of what appears to be the main site at the moment?
That is an excellent question. My advice would be to get it into the master folder. And the reason for that is that periodically depending on whether they're running to schedule or not, DIT will do a purge of videos that are not in the master folders. Technically, they're meant to do it every 12 months, at which point they will clear all of those videos that are not in that persistent master folder. So if you lost video content because it wasn't sitting in the right spot, opportunity missed, I guess. So my answer would be get it into the master folder so at least it's not going to get wiped.
Okay, I'll do that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's not a problem. And moving it around in the back end, for those that understand this stuff, does not mean that you have to re-embed the video itself. It just means that it's not going to be deleted if someone does a purge of all of the session site folders, for example. You're just simply shifting where the video lives in the back. The embedding will still be fine. So how do you access the master folder, says Nicola? We find them by looking through the browse function down the bottom here in the Panopto backend. And when that comes up, you're going to see your own folder. Then we've got the Brightspace folder at the top, and inside that Brightspace folder, you can drill down to Charles Sturt University, find your faculty, find your school, and then inside the school level, you'll find your master subjects, your session subject sites, course sites, etc. So that's where you find it. There may also be issues with access, for example, if you haven't been added to the back, and if that case applies to you, then you can log a share request and we can add you to those folders if you need to have access to them. So just log a share request, but at least you know where to start. All right, let's keep moving. I'll stop again for more questions and things in a bit.
Lachlan, just before you do, I'm just on the note about embedding and links
Yes.
following. It's probably prudent to iterate that it's important to use the Panopto deep link when you're putting your videos in, and not just copying a link out of Panopto itself.
Absolutely. We're going to do both of those when we actually make a video, and then I will talk about the embedding part. But thank you for that. All right. So we looked at the back end. Now we're going to look at the front end, and this is probably a bit more familiar to you. When we go into our Brightspace subject sites, and I'm going to pick on a nursing subject here, you're probably familiar with this scenario where you go into your content, and somewhere within the content, you're going to find topics, for example, where they have videos embedded. If I can find one that says watch, here we go. So there's a YouTube video that's embedded. Great example, Lachlan. Let's see if we can find some Panopto videos instead. I did find one a minute ago. Okay, so this is a Panopto video that has been embedded within the content area. And you'll notice that there is a CSU copyright disclaimer, which appears at the beginning of all the Panopto videos when they get embedded. So that's applied automatically. And when we go and create a video in the tool in just a moment, you'll see how that is done. But this is a Panopto video, ideally stored in the master folder in the back end, embedded into the content, which means that we don't have to worry about provisioning it each session. It'll be there available, playable to students, and we don't have to worry about it being deleted because it's sitting in the master, as opposed to those non-IVT tutorial and lecture recordings, etc. So there's a distinction in that use case. So in Brightspace, in a content area with Panopto videos embedded, if students were inclined to download this, you'll find that as part of the embed, there'll be a download button at the bottom. They can open it up in full screen. They can turn on closed captions, etc. when the video plays. And there's a few other bits and bobs that Panopto embeds into it. If you've ever clicked on the drop-down arrow, you'll notice, if I zoom in a little, that it has a note-taking function built in. Notes is right there, and they can put comments and things in. I don't actually know of anyone that uses that feature a whole lot, but it is there. And I certainly am not saying that you should be opening up all of your videos and checking if students are leaving comments underneath them, but the functionality is there in the tool. You'll also notice that some videos will have a table of contents, which I'll show you how that's created in a second. Think of it in terms of like a track list on a CD, for example, that at certain parts of the recording, there will be chapters installed if you want there to be. So I think having said that, it's high time that we created a video inside Panopto so you can see how those things are done. So I am going to launch Panopto from, let me move this Teams sharing thing out of the way. Okay, inside my training site, I'm going to go into the Panopto tool. Rather than launching it from the back end, I'm going to do it from inside a subject site. So my subject, CSU Replay Panopto. Tool's going to open here. I actually have a video sitting there from before, but I'm going to create a new one, which I do by selecting Create. Then it's asking me if I want to use Panopto for Windows, which is going to launch the Panopto tool. That's exactly what I'm going to use. But if you're curious about this Panopto Capture, it is a web browser-based light version of the tool. And you might get students that use it sometimes if they can't install software and things. You can launch a fairly light version of it from your browser, which gives you probably about half the functionality. But in terms of just recording a basic video, it'll do the job. The other option that I'll draw your attention to is the upload media function, which is what you can use for students to actually load in videos that they've created elsewhere to store inside the Panopto folder. So if they've recorded something on a mobile phone, that's interesting. Teams blocked out my phone there. They can record the video on that device and upload it into the Panopto folder as long as it's on their computer somewhere. Those are the ones I wanted to focus on, uploading media and Panopto for Windows. So let's launch the program. If you've never installed Panopto on your computer before, there's a prompt for it underneath. You can do so here, but I've done it. So I'm going to launch Panopto. We'll wait for it to open in the background. Here we go. Okay, and this is the Panopto recorder interface. Let me drag this out a little so you can see what we're dealing with here. All right, starting up the top, I'll move this Teams share button out of the way again. God, that's annoying. Down there. Okay. So up the top, we've got the folder in the Panopto backend where this video is going to be stored. First thing that we look at, by default, it will start with the subject folder that you are launching it from. If you want to store it in your own personal My folder in the back end, you can select it from here. If you want to find the subject master folder and you have access to it, you can find it here. So you can change the store folder right from the get-go for when you start making the recording. Otherwise, you're probably going to need to move it around somewhere. Then we have the name of the file, and as I mentioned before, it is taking a timestamp as part of the default name for it. But if you wanted to give it a more appropriate name, making it a bit easier for you to find it later, you can do so before you've even started recording. And I'd probably recommend you do that. We have the record button itself, big red button up in the top left-hand corner, which I'm not going to click on just yet. And then we have an area along the left-hand side here called sources. So primary sources refers to your video input. So at the moment, it's talking about video being either my inbuilt webcam. So it's looking at my laptop's one. Hello. And the Teams one, I can't select because it's being used in Teams. But if you've got an external webcam, you'll be able to select it from the list. And if you don't want your head in a box talking as part of the recording, then you just choose none. And at that point, it's going to do screen capture of whatever I'm recording on the computer when I choose that in this area in a moment. But it's up to you to decide, firstly, do you want your face there talking as part of this recording or not? So that's our first source, video. Second, we have audio, and you can see the green lines moving up here. So it's picking up my microphone. Make sure you're using the right one. If you're using an internal mic on a laptop, you're probably going to sound fairly tinny, for lack of a better term. So you might want to use your headset if you've got one, or if you're using earbuds or something like that. Make sure you've got the right audio input there. The quality section underneath, I usually just change this to ultra, which is the highest setting you can choose, because I don't then have to worry about the video quality at the end. I'm not storing it on my device. I don't have any concerns about how much storage space this is going to use. So just choose the highest setting, set it to ultra. Capture computer audio underneath refers to if you've got any audio playing that you want recorded as a part of this. So let's say you had, and I'm not getting into copyright implications here, but let's say that you had a music track playing on your computer and you wanted that in your recording. You're going to need to capture the computer audio, which means checking that box. And I say again, I'm not getting into the copyright implications of doing that, whether using YouTube or something else. If you want the audio that's playing on your computer in your recording, you got to check that box. All right, then we have secondary sources underneath. And so, for example, if I wanted to record my screen, which is what a lot of people are going to want to do, you're going to need to check this box, capture main screen. And over here on the right, they have a preview area, which will allow you to see what it is that you're recording. So you'd need to check this box that says enable the screen capture preview. And at the moment, because I'm looking at the same screen that I have this open on, if I check that box, I'm going to get a box in a box in a box in a box. It wigs out a little bit here. However, if I was to choose my other screen, that gives you a bit of a better idea. So there's Teams up there and the people in the meeting, etc. So you can get a preview of what's happening. Normally I'm dragging this box onto my other screen and my preview will show the screen I'm about to record. But that's what the preview does. And at that point, you can have a look at the resolution settings that are over here on the right-hand side. And this is probably where my first tip comes in. You need probably to know what your monitor or your device's resolution settings are so that you can match the Panopto settings to them. To get the best possible recording settings, you need to know what your screen's resolution settings are. If you don't know how to do that, it's simple. Have a look at your desktop. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. Have a look at your desktop on your monitor. Right click, go into your display settings. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that the resolution that you currently have it set to, so in my case, it's a fairly big monitor, 1920 by 1080. Now, when I go into the resolution settings in Panopto, I can make sure that my resolution here is the same. That is the maximum resolution I can get out of my recordings, the best it's going to get. So try and match those two things up if you can, and it will give you the best recording quality possible. All right, let's bring back the browser and we will start making our Panopto recordings. So let me move this off to the side. Browser, 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 that'll do. So at the moment, I'm recording everything that's happening on this screen. I'm going to hit the big red button to start the recording. It will give me a countdown. Usually it takes a few seconds to kick in, and then here we go. It's now recording anything that's happening on here. So that's me switching between monitor screens, whether it's me opening up Word documents, for example, and working through them, whether I'm in any other application. Anything that's happening on this screen is being recorded, so otherwise referred to as a screencast. Some people might have PowerPoints open, you might have PDFs open. Anything that's going on here, as well as your voice, those different inputs that we were sorting through in our sources, is being recorded. And when you're finished with that process and you're happy with it, you hit stop and the recording will be done. If, however, you're being careful and you want to stop along the way, get yourself gathered and move on to the next bit, you can hit pause and then line yourself up for the next part of the recording. Depends how long the recording's going to be. And unpause when you're ready and it will keep going. But when you get to the end of that recording, you hit stop. It's now going to process the recording, but you have a choice now whether you want to trash it on the spot and go again, or if you want to hit done and let it start processing. So I'll hit done. And it's now processing my more appropriate name video over here. And you'll notice at the top of this little display here, I can switch back to create new recording and make another one anyway. So within the recorder interface, I can jump between those tabs at the top to have a look at the progress of the processing for that video. It's only a minute long. And if I wanted to get rid of it, I could delete it on the spot here as well. That's all I'm going to look at in terms of the recorder. So I'm going to move this off the screen, because now that I've made that recording, if I go back to my subject site, remember I started in here by hitting the create button, etc. If I refresh my screen, what we're going to see now is that the video that I just made has already appeared in here. So because it's just taken the same default start point, it's already publishing that video here, 55 seconds. And now we can look at what we can do with our videos inside the site. Hovering my mouse over it, we'll see that I've got an edit option. I've got a share option, which will allow me to get a link. And I've got settings, which will give me more information about the video. I'm going to start with settings, and then I'll work my way back to the editor. So clicking on the video settings, you'll notice the first thing I can change if I'm not happy with it is the name. So there are multiple ways to change the title of the video if you need to. You can also change the folder that it's sitting in from here, from the settings. We get a preview image or a thumbnail if you're interested in what that might also be called, and that's what appears over here on the left. You can change that. There's a link directly to the video if you wanted it there. Moving down, we've got timestamps and things, but probably the most important thing here is whether or not the video is able to be downloaded. So this will have a look at your default settings and apply those unless you want to change it. So in this case, it's saying that authenticated users, so people that have signed in to the subject site in Brightspace, will be able to download this video. If they're not authenticated CSU users and you've just sent that hyperlink to someone outside the uni, they'll be able to watch it, not download it. They won't be authenticated. So just check that download setting if you're not sure why people can't download it locally, if you want them to be able to do that. The other thing I might point out is that we have a share tab here, and that will tell you that in Brightspace, our Panopto videos by default have two terms, creator and viewer. And this creator refers to any of the teachers in the subject site. They can make videos and watch videos, they're creators. And all of the students in the subject site by default are viewers. So they can't make any, they can't delete any. They can watch them. If you wanted to change that for this video, who can get access to it outside of this group, then you could use this change button. And this is how you change it into a public video where you can just share the link to anyone. And they can and play it back, but you need to change those share settings here. The last thing I want to show you in these settings, I'm not going into all of these different areas, is outputs. And the outputs area is interesting because if we scroll down, there is a setting here called quality, and this refers to anyone who downloads the video. So this is probably more for the LROs and others in the meeting. If you're ever wanting to download and publish a Panopto video into another platform like YouTube, the default quality of a Panopto download is very low, 576. It's not amazing. If you want that to be fit for purpose elsewhere, change the quality settings to 1080, for example. It will reprocess the video, and then when you download it, you get a much higher quality video file that won't look grainy and small and pixelated and all the rest of it. Otherwise, the quality settings will be that default 576. Okay, I won't dwell on that for too much longer. I want to have a look at the editor. So I've made my video here. It's appeared in the site available to students, but there are terrible things in the middle of it, at the end of it. Maybe I've sworn when I couldn't get it to work, who knows? But the video needs some work. How do I edit the video? We click on the edit button here. And this will open the Panopto video in a new tab with the editor available for us to work with the video. So we're going to work through what's in the editor here. Up here's a video showing us what it looks like currently. You can hit the play button here to work through it. There's this guy talking, okay, and you'll see it's working along the timeline here. So you can move the video to different parts along the timeline if you're inclined to do so here. But what I'm interested in is this area underneath. So if this first part was just garbage and I want to get rid of it, you can left click and drag to highlight that section. Maybe this part in the middle is no good. I'm assuming that you've gone to these sections and identified which parts you want to get rid of. So I can do multiple crops that I want to get rid of, and you can see that different parts of this are highlighted. And because these little scissors icons down the bottom here are highlighted, which they are on by default, if I was to now click apply up in the top corner, it will make a new video excluding these sections. So cropping is super easy. Do as many as you like, do as few as you like, but you need to play it through and identify which parts you want to remove. You can zoom in a bit closer to the timeline if you want to stretch out how big this appears for you, but that's usually for people that have made videos longer than 1 minute like I have here. So if you can't see all the area that you need to and it's a longer video, just zoom in a bit and then you'll be able to highlight and see the other sections. So that is how we crop or edit within the Panopto editor. There are some other features in the editor that I want to show you. On the left-hand side here, if I zoom in a little, it's talking about contents. And remember, I showed you that video in nursing before that had chapters that students could jump to. Those are called smart chapters. And if you've used PowerPoint, for example, to capture in Panopto, it will actually create smart chapters automatically based on the titles of the PowerPoint slides, at which point students could jump between the different parts of the timeline where those slides begin. So it automatically creates those. But if you've just recorded your screen like I did and you want to create your own chapters in the video, you just start typing them in here. So if I said, amazing introduction is the first bit, hit enter and you'll notice that it's now added a chapter in here based on where the timeline was at. So at 57 seconds. If I went back here to the beginning and did it again, actually, this is the introduction. There we go. It's sitting at the top there. So you can create as many of those chapters as you like, and then the viewers of your video will be able to jump between different parts of the video. So you can create those chapters here. Captioning is on by default with Panopto, but after you make your video, it's going to take a little while, probably an hour or two, for those captions to be available to students. So if they can't click on the CC, closed captions icon, and get the dubbing, etc. underneath, it's because it hasn't finished processing yet. It usually takes an hour or two for them to appear. Let's keep working through here. You do have the ability. Here's the transcript happening in here, and the captioning, it's already populated because it's only 1 minute long. Shorter the recording, the faster the processing. You can add your own captions in as well if you want other text in there. What else have we got going on? There's a slides option here. If you want to attach PowerPoint slides to your recording as an attachment that students can download, you can do that in here and they'll be able to download the file. That's not the same as recording PowerPoint directly with Panopto as a source. That's something different. If you want to talk about that, I'm happy to talk to you separately about that. Today we're talking about the screencasting option, I guess, which assumes that you can open anything on your screen, whether it's Word, PDF, browsers, anything at all, and record. Panopto has a function called quizzing that is built in. So if you want your viewers to have to answer questions as they go through the video, you can add a quiz. By clicking on the quiz area inside the editor, select Add a Quiz, and it'll now allow us to choose from different question types that will open up to the students at a particular point in the video. So again, choose which part along the timeline you want the quiz to happen. So at 16 seconds or 6 seconds, whatever that is, 8 seconds, I want to add a quiz. I can choose true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank, or multiple select. It doesn't allow for open text responses. So really it's looking for a closed answer question, a specific response. So let's go with true, false as the first one. Sky is blue. And the answer being true. Okay, at that point I can add more questions or hit done. And now what's going to happen when they watch the video is it's going to stop and prompt them. Where's the quiz? Why didn't it play it? It might not be true in Sydney this morning. Good point, Laura. So how is the quiz behaving at the moment? Maybe I haven't finished with all the settings. You can provide an explanation for the correct answer. Good. There's also usually a trigger setting somewhere here. There is a setting with the quiz question. Here we go. That'll either delete it. That's not going to do it. Let's preview the video. Maybe I haven't applied it yet. Here we go. When you hit done, sorry, my mistake. You've got to hit done on your quiz question before you get to these options. When do you want the quiz to happen? You can determine when in the timeline that's going to happen. They can do it as many times as they like unless you uncheck that box. There's going to be a score. It doesn't talk to the grade center, etc. It's simply just a number. And then you also have the option of stopping them progressing through the video unless they get the right answer. So you can create those kind of stepped videos. Yeah, thank you, Christopher. That's exactly what I needed to do. All right, and then we finish our quiz setup, at which point it's going to hit us with the quiz. There it is. And I need to put my question in before it keeps progressing. So that's how the quizzing tool works. Have a play around with it. I haven't seen it used a lot, but the potential is there. It's not going to apply it to the finished video until we hit apply, which I'll do in just a moment. But the last thing that I do want to show you inside the editor interface is this little area called streams. So if I get rid of the quiz, let's hit streams. At the moment, the only stream that's attached to this video is my webcam. When you are recording multiple streams, which could be your screen, your webcam, your microphone, for example, you are able to delete them or add additional streams to your video. This usually crops up when people have said, I accidentally recorded my face. I didn't want my face in the video. How do I get rid of it later on? You can delete your webcam video stream from here. So you can delete extra streams, but there will always need to be one. At the moment, this one only has one, but if you have other streams in here you want to get rid of, such as the video stream, you can delete them from here. Again, that might be one for the LROs who were getting jobs logged for that. So that is me glossing over the editor in Panopto. When you're ready with the video and finished, you hit apply, and it will now finish processing the video. You can close. I can close that tab. And you'll see that it's now telling me that it's working through processing it. So again, the longer the video, the longer it'll take to process. Let me stop there because I'm going very quickly through these functions. Outstanding questions? Anyone want to come off mute and ask me whilst you got me? Otherwise, I'll look through the chat.
Not a question so much, Lachlan, but we have essentially three different areas, don't we, within Panopto? The application, the subject site or the master site, and then this what we're looking at now. Do we have anything pictorially that would tell us, maybe a flow chart, what to do first, where to go, what they actually mean? Would that be helpful?
Look, I'll have to have a look to see. The DIT site on Panopto, if I'm being honest, is not amazingly helpful. It really only addresses the lecture capture functionality that it's used, that it's officially kind of paid for, rather than all of these other areas like the integration and things. They do have some higher level platform documentation, but that's not CSU specific, so it's not really connecting the dots between the LTI, for example, the integration with it in the subject site, and the application and workflows. But I'll certainly have a look and see what I can come up with. Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah, the workflow might be the word to use there rather than a flow chart. Yeah, thanks, Lachlan.
That's okay. Sue.
Hi, you know how I think this is something to do with a thumbnail, but you know when you have a video and your face is frozen in time on the screen and it's always pulling a face. How do you change the thumbnail so that you can not have a crazy face on the screen?
Excellent. You go into the settings for the video, either in the front end or the back end. You're looking at the settings for the video and have a look at the preview image. That's where it is. You can edit that, you can change that, you can upload your own. Same as changing a thumbnail in YouTube, for example.
Right, okay.
That's how you do it. Yep.
Thank you.
Change it there. All right, let me continue on for a second. I'm happy to hang around at the end as well for anyone with more detailed questions. But let's just keep going for the moment. We've made our video. It's sitting inside this folder, but I want to get it into my content. And this is what Veronica was mentioning earlier about how we share our videos, the different ways that that can happen. I showed you before when we look at our settings for Panopto that there is a share area that allow you to get things like a hyperlink. You could copy and share to people, and that will let them watch it or not, depending on your access settings. But far more common, we have people that just want this content available within their learning materials, within their content area. And to do that, we need to embed the video. So I'm going to show you how to do it. I've added this into a folder that sits inside my subject site. This is why it's important that you know where the video lives. But if I was going to add it to my content, start by going into the content area that you want it in. Find the page that you want to put the video on, or add a new page. That's up to you. I'm going to add it to a new page. Let's make new page. Hopefully this looks familiar to you, the bright space new page area, and I'm looking at the editor. We have an option in the editor, let me zoom in a little, called Insert Stuff. And when we click on that, the second option here is Panopto Deep Link. And that talks to the Panopto tool, helps us locate the videos we're looking for, and this is where we're deciding, is this the right folder? At the moment, it will default to the site that you open it in, so I'm in the right spot. There's the video I just made. That's the one. I want to embed this. Why is it not letting me embed? Let's scroll down a little bit. Here we go. Insert is the button we are looking for. It will give you a preview, and you'll notice that it's already added the CSU privacy disclaimer thing at the beginning. You can watch it through here again if you like as a preview, but otherwise we hit insert and it now adds the video full length of your content area, which is good. You don't have to change any of those settings, etc. And we can save and close. And we now have our beautifully embedded Panopto video sitting inside our content with those other functions, downloading, etc., captioning, all that stuff is available at the bottom of the embedded viewer. This is as good as you are going to get this video to look inside Brightspace, right? When it's embedded like that. There's not a lot of white area around it, for example. It's not off center, anything like that. Perfectly embedded. If I was doing it in an area where I already had text, this will do. So I've got a content page and I wanted to put a video here, for example. I'm going to edit the video. Sorry, edit the content, says Lachlan, and scroll down to the place that I want to put the video, just there. And then the same process. Insert stuff. find the video that you're looking for after you've chosen the Panopto deep link. This time round, I'm going to pretend that I've got a video sitting in a master folder somewhere that I want to embed. So let's find the master folder. Hit the drop down arrow. This is where we end up browsing. So inside the Brightspace folder in the back end, we're looking for Charles Sturt University. Then we're going to find the faculty that I'm looking for. So let's go science, then the school, nursing, then the master subject. Inside the master subject, I'm going to say it's sitting inside. God, this could be a disaster if I find the wrong one. Okay, there's nothing in there. Let's try that one. Hey, there's some videos here. Great. All right. That's the one. Insert. And insert, and there's the video. So I've now linked a video that's sitting in the right master folder into my content in the position that I wanted, after the text, before that other area. Save and close, and we're done. So that is, in a nutshell, embedding. I'll stop there for a second and see. Nicola's asked a question about advantage over deep linking using the embed code. Yeah, look, to be honest, they've invested a lot of money in making that deep linking tool look as clean and as professional as it can inside the content containers. It just inevitably looks better unless you're very careful about how you use the embed code. It's a lot easier to make mistakes with that. So I would suggest that you use the functionality that's there. V, go ahead.
Lachlan, we found when we're doing the optimization work that using the embed code, the Panopto deep link process ensured that when that material was copied from the master site into the subject site, that the link remained active. It also means that anyone that's got access to that subject site or master site, whichever it is able to view that video without needing to go back into Panopto and change accessibility settings on that.
Yeah, so that's an excellent point. Sitting behind all of this in the back end is this idea of roles and permissions and who has access to the folder where the video sits. So in the master folder, for example, just like with your master subject sites in Brightspace, there is a limited list of people who get access to it. But if you want to make sure that those permissions apply properly in each of the session sites, such as this one, that it's pushed out to, you need to use the deep linking tool so it maintains those permissions and relationships from the master through to the session subject sites. So it'll let the new students and the new instructors get access to it and maintain the same permissions, etc., that sit inside the master. This is so we can make sure that we only have to provision it once. If it's done properly, you're not going to have to worry about your videos in each subsequent teaching session. It's just going to sit there properly. But the golden rule is make sure it is set up properly in your master subject site first, if possible. And if you're adding these videos into your content during the current teaching session, you may need to log a job to make sure that it is done properly in the master as well for subsequent subject sessions. Okay, let's see what I've glossed over and not done yet. So I have got a slide there or two. Let's go into those for a second. That's the one. Okay, some questions for you to think about just quickly when you're making your videos to help you decide whether you're creating things in the back end, whether you're doing them inside your session subject site, and whether or not you want to embed, etc. First one is, where do you want it to be available to students? If it's going to be in the content, like we just looked at, then you're going to need to use, firstly, create it so that it sits within the right master folder, so that you don't have to worry about it being deleted or that there's no access issues. If you're only recording things in tutorials, for example, that you only need for that session, then you can use that CSU replay folder in your session subject site. That's okay, but they're not going to be usable to students in subsequent sessions without some other work being done. How long do you want it to be there? As we just said, just for the current iteration of students in that session site or every time the subjects run. And then what do you want it to look like? We looked at an embedded video, for example. If you're just giving a hyperlink to people to watch, then it's going to look differently than an embedded video. So you have to make a decision around where you record, how you record, etc., based on that use case. We made some videos working through the Panopto tool itself. I told you to make sure you know what the resolution is on your screen so that you can match the Panopto tool to that. We had a look at the editor, allowing you to do things like adding tables of contents, etc. Now, assignments folder, that's what I haven't done. Excellent. Thank you, Padlet Wall. Let's talk about the assignment folder. Inside your subject sites, when you open up the CSU replay area underneath my subject, by default, there will be no other subfolders in here. It's just going to be the name of the site that you're in, which will be your subject code, any videos that you may have created, but no subfolders. You can create some manually here if you wanted to help organize your videos, but we're talking about a very specific instance here called the assignments folder. And the way that we create them is by going across to these three dots over here, more actions, and we can go into our settings. And we have an option here that says create assignment folder. What a Panopto assignment folder will do, just one click, it's now created it with the subject name and then the word assignments in these lovely square brackets. Close that, it's now sitting here. Now, an assignment folder in a subject site allows students to actually use the Panopto tool to create and upload video. If we go in there, your students will be able to access it, create or upload their own videos. Other students will not be able to see anyone else's work. So your instructors can go in here and watch them and play them and have a look at everything that's in here. But for students coming in to use the tool or to upload video in here as well, remember there is an upload option as well as creating the video. They'll only be able to see their own. So this gives us a storage space and a creation tool for students to use for video assessment. It doesn't talk to any other part of the system, however. It just gives us a place to store them. So for us to be able to assess them and give them feedback and a grade and all those things, we need to use our Brightspace tools. So in this case, I'm going to create an assignment to go alongside my storage area for students. So at that point, we go into our assessment area, assignments. I'm going to create a new assignment. Let's go video assessment, whatever you want to call it, the assessment number, etc. Maybe it's worth 20%, who knows? Let's go with that. In the instructions, I'd be saying, make sure you create, upload your video into the CSU replay assignments folder. And then the type of assignment that I'm going to make for them, the important thing here is the submission type. I don't want the student submitting a file in here. All I want them doing is giving me the link to their video. So I would suggest that you change this to a text submission that will allow them to copy and paste the link. And it will give me a space now inside the assignment tool and the gradebook, to be able to give their feedback and their grades. So that's all I need. So maybe in the instructions, I'm probably add to that here. Copy and paste the link to your video in the assignment area. That'll do. And now when the students make those submissions, it's probably added it right to the bottom of the board somewhere. Video assessment, here we go. So if I went in to mark this assignment, watching the videos, I could then go into each of these student areas, open the evaluation, give them a grade, give them comments, etc. So this gives me both a way for the students to create or upload the video, share the link to me, I can watch it, then I can give them the grade and the feedback, and that goes into the gradebook. So you need the two parts together. If you're trying to use Brightspace to get students to upload video into this area, we've got some other complications. How big's the file? Can you watch it? Do you need to download all those videos onto your own device? All that kind of stuff. Using a Panopto assignment folder allows you to bypass that option. So it takes care of storage and it gives them a tool to create the video. So I would suggest you use those two things in tandem. Okay, I'm aware that we are approaching time, if not on time, so let me see what else I've missed. Honourable mentions. There are some stats inside the Panopto tool in Brightspace that you might be interested in looking at to see which students have been looking at which videos. The way that you access those, let's find any one of these. There's a video in here. I can have a look at the thumbnail, hit the three dots that's next to the video, and I'm looking for stats. And at that point, it will allow me to narrow down the time period that I'm interested in, and then it will give me a breakdown of month, how long they've been watching things for, and also a list of the student names underneath. So have a play with the stats area. There are some shortcut keys for those of you interested in such things. You can use your left and right arrows to scroll through the video. Up and down will change the volume settings in a Panopto video. Spacebar will play and pause. The M key will mute. Maybe that will be of value to you. But otherwise, I will stop there and hang around for any questions that you may have. For those of you going, thank you for joining us for another Teaching Academy PD session. Thank you very much. I'll stop the recording there.